You can't do it wrong. I thought we'd get back to the cushion tonight, although the world is burning. We all have our lives, sometimes within our control, sometimes seeming to spin out of it. The world turns, and we sit here. You can't do it wrong. Most of you will know that's one of my teacher Barry Magid's sayings. It's his basic instruction for meditation. How do I do this? You can't do it wrong. And at one level, that's hugely reassuring. Apart from the fact that, as he says, that's what I say to everybody and nobody ever believes me. But if we believed Barry, that would be hugely reassuring. You can't do it wrong. But then on the other hand, if you can't do it wrong, you can't do it right either. And we always want to do it right. We always want to get things right. And the first question we're going to ask is, am I doing this right? How do I know? I need to do things right because I need to know that I'm in the right, and I need to know that I'm doing it the right way so I'll get the desired result. And if I can't do it wrong and I can't do it right, then what am I doing sat here anyway? So actually, at the same time that Barry's being very reassuring, he's also asking us quite a probing question. What is it I think I want out of this practice? What do I imagine getting it right would look like? What do I imagine getting it right would feel like? The main reason why he puts it that way is because we're not looking to get to any particular state, not a state of consciousness, not an emotional state. This isn't about state, it's about process. It's about, well, what is it about? We could say being present to whatever arises, allowing it to arise, opening to it. And what do we actually do? Well, again and again and again, we turn away. We turn away from experience. We turn away from our lives. And that's the basic problem, if we want to call it that Joko Beck was trying to draw our attention to all the time. Why do we do that? Because we don't want to turn towards it. We don't want to open to it. We like our version of our lives in our minds, and who wants reality to intrude and interrupt? So we feel resistance. We feel resistance between just in this moment, maybe, or maybe it's more general in our lives, between the experience of this life as it is and how I'd like it to be. Or even, and perhaps this is worse, when life rudely informs me that life isn't the way I imagine it is. So what Joko asks us to do, what Barry asks us to do, is when we experience that resistance, as we do again and again and again, that we turn into it, that we allow it. We could say we hold it, we could say we be it. Being present to whatever arises. And obviously difficult things that nasty memory or that fear, that place in the past, in the future, maybe even now, that I don't want to go. That's the most obvious kind of turning away, the most obvious kind of resistance. But actually, in my life, there's a lot that's simply beneath my notice. Why would I pay attention to that? Why would I become aware of that? Partly that's to do with the way that we perceive things itself, things which are steady states, things which are there but don't seem important. We just don't see them after a while. We don't see situations, we don't see people. If we go into the city centre and see homeless people for the first time, that's shocking, that's alarming, that's how can this be? If we're just passing them by on a daily commute, that's just the way it is. But so much of life is like that, and I'm not even drawing attention to that as a hugely important example. It's just we don't notice. And of course, if it's something like the pain in my knee, I really don't want to notice that. And if I can just plot it out, then that's fantastic. But here, that's not the deal. How do we know we're turning away? How do we know we're resisting? It's really any time we feel any kind of tension, any kind of excitement. And that's most definitely a body feeling. And keep coming back to this idea of this as an embodied practice. It's a practice which starts in the body. And if we lose track of the body, if we feel that the body is beneath our notice, or this body is just too difficult to experience fully, then I'm turning away from that kind of resistance. But it's not always pain. Just if I'm aware of this, I can be aware of certain kinds of tension that I'm holding from particular kind of emotions, places I don't want to go right now. But also just that kind of random excitement. I mean, boredom. We think of boredom as flat. I mean, actually it's not. Boredom's spiky. Boredom says, no, I can't hack this. I was expecting something to happen. Do something. Make something happen. Find a pain I can concentrate on. Find a thought I can get worried about. Try and find a stain on the wall I can look at. Come on, there must be something. Distract me. That's exciting. In a way, boredom's quite a friend, because I can really notice at this kind of really trivial, minute level my resistance to the idea of actually just being this, being here for whatever does come along. So Joko used to like people to sit quite hard. I know she always says, if you're really in pain, you're going to move. This isn't some kind of weird endurance thing, but at the same time, the kind of pain in my knee is archetypal. It's the traditional subject for Dokusan. You go and talk to the teacher. What's happening in this moment? My knee's hurt. And that physical pain. Yeah. How am I with that physical pain? Am I wanting to turn away from it? Am I wanting to blot it out? Am I going to go into a really deep process of really observing it moment by moment, mapping it out. Where is it? Where is it now? What's happening? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? But of course, exactly the same kind of process I'm doing with the pain in my thoughts, that place I don't want to go. And of course, if I'm actually present in this body, I'll notice the physical components of that very strongly. What's that doing? You ever sitting and you have a thought just flips through, and you've twitched, you've moved, and you become aware, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? It's clearly something going on here, the pain in my thoughts. Or we've been talking a lot about shame in recent talks. The pain that is me, the pain that is my unlovableness, my badness, my uselessness, my everything. Maybe I find myself sitting with that. Maybe I don't. Let's get back to you can't do it wrong for a moment. Because actually in the practice itself, who of us can resist my successes, my failures in what I feel is the practice? One of the basic introductory techniques, and it's been there for heaven knows 1,000, 2,000 years, is breath counting. And of course the joke around this is you count slowly with each breath from 1 to 10, some version of that. And it's the kind of thing you can get good at and you can succeed at. And I've counted to 10, so now I'll count back down to 1, and now I'll count up to 10. Practice, repeated practice, going back and back and back, will allow us to develop that. But is that just sitting? And of course there's the joke, which isn't a joke, that says, well actually, if I'm really being aware, if I'm really paying attention when I'm counting my breath, I only ever get to 1 because I notice I've gone. But I come back. Or we can even go really directly into an important part of the practice itself, this really awareness of exactly what's happening in me now. The minute sensations in my body, how those connect up to what I'll call feelings, the emotional moods that are going on, the associations with the thoughts. And I can get good at that, and it's really useful, and it's an important part of the practice. But, again, I can succeed at it. And then I've kind of lost the point again, because the resistance collapses. And resistance is always the edge of practice. Resistance is always the edge of the possible. This gentle pressure, this where the resistance is coming in, just feeling that tension, feeling a problem. So in a sense, every time I'm feeling success, every time I'm feeling failure, I can either get lost in that, or I can realise that that's the practice. Because there is always and only the practice, which is, in that sense, why I can't do it wrong. If I'm failing, that's still the practice. If I can't concentrate, that's my practice. If I lose contact with my body, that's my practice. If I have this wonderful feeling of peace and calm and success, well, that's still my practice in exactly the same way as the days when I really can't settle. And my practice is thoughts everywhere, not settling. And how does that feel, and where does that take me to? And how does that feel in my body? And how we talk about this is difficult because, in a sense, any way we can say it, I'm going to say it, and I can say it wrong and you can hear it wrong. So do we say it's actually about slightly stepping back, about putting enough distance in between this emotion, this physical feeling, this thought, and being able to just step back and look at it? And in one sense, yeah, that's quite a useful image. But in a sense, that's also implying some kind of separation. There's now an observer and there's now an observed. A subject looking at an object. And I thought this practice was about non-separation. Clearly, it's about changing the nature of our relationship, the way we are these perceptions, feelings, emotions. And so I often say, be the feeling, be the pain in the knee, be the dreadful fear, be the awful thought. But it's being in a way which roots it within yourself without letting it tell a story, without letting it carry you off. That just allows you to be here, holding, containing that feeling, that pain, that thought, that whatever. Or that nothing much. And we'll cut back to the boredom and the kind of sense that, well, I thought this practice was about something. And nothing's happening. And that's my practice too. What am I expecting? What am I wanting? How do I expect this to feel in my body? Why? Just being aware. So there's resistance, there's kind of turning away, and there's return. And as soon as I'm aware, in that sense, I'm returned. And it's the process which is important. It's not, oh, I'm getting it wrong, oh, I'm getting it right again. It's like breathing. It's like breathing out. I breathe out the world. I breathe out my body. I breathe out everything I don't want to be connected with, and I breathe in the world. I breathe in my body. I breathe in life as it is. Here I am. Resistance and return, a process, not a state. As we say, nowhere to go, nothing to do, because there is nowhere to go. And of course, over time, over months, years, decades of practice, this sitting, it does change. It shifts in so many different ways. I get much better at noticing. I get much better at not just finding that I've gone. I get better at connecting things up. And that's all wonderful, because in that sense, yeah, honestly, I'm more aware. I'm aware in different kind of registers. But it's still the same practice. It's still exactly the same practice. So, can't do it right, can't do it wrong. Nowhere to go. It might feel great. It might be the most enjoyable sitting I've had. It might be the worst. It might be a nightmare, or it might just be Surely there's more than this. But at the end of the day, no good, no bad. You can't do it wrong.